Welcome to 5 Traits of a Great Project Manager. Here's our agenda for today. For those of you that don't know me, I'm going to give you guys an introduction to who I am and where I work and all that good kind of stuff. We'll also talk through together a bit the 5 traits of what we all think a great project manager looks like. I'll also give you guys some activities and new habits, if you're not doing them already, to start thinking about to become even a better project manager. I imagine that's why we're all here today, not only to get some PDUs, but to also maybe take away some things that will help you in your day-to-day. Once we do that, we'll talk about some next steps, some things I recommend. We'll also leave a lot of time at the end for questions. So if you do have questions, please feel free to put them into the chat window, and I'll make sure that we talk about them at the end of the session. So my name is Erika Flora. I'm a principal at a company called Beyond 20, which we'll talk about here in a second. I've been a long-time project and program manager myself. I've led multiple IT projects, enterprise project management with Microsoft Project Server, SharePoint, all sorts of things. I've helped roll out IT service management projects, ticketing tools. I've helped revamp processes, all sorts of different kinds of things. I've also been a long-time PMI board member. I've served on the boards of PMI in Phoenix as well as PMI in San Diego. In fact, I was involved in the original Project Management Week and getting the governor of Arizona to recognize Project Management Week the first week of November. So I always try to get involved with Project Management Week and do webinars. We also, as a company, Beyond 20, we do a number of different free webinars throughout the year. We have a few different ones every month. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'll leave my contact information at the end so you can reach out. We actually have a whole series that we're starting up on just higher education. So if I've got anyone on the call that is in higher ed, those are going to be really good webinars for you guys to attend. You can also find them at our website at beyond20.com. I already got a question as to will I be providing the slides? Yes, absolutely. I will email the slides out to everyone at the end. Beyond 20, who we are, the name Beyond 20 actually came from, interestingly enough, a Gartner research study where they looked at what caused, when mission critical systems went down, what caused the downtime. And what was kind of interesting about it is they found that actually only 20% of the time was it due to failures in things like hardware, software, natural disasters, that actually 80% of the time when mission critical systems fail us, they were able to tie it back to failure in people and failure in process. And so that's really what we're passionate about. We help with the people and the process side of it. We do that through project management training. We do assessments, both of projects as well as project manager skill assessments. We do a lot of consulting and coaching of project teams, as well as implementation of enterprise project management tools. So that's a little bit about us. We are a global registered educational provider through PMI. I know your chapter is going to be automatically giving everyone PDUs for attending, but for all of our other webinars as well, you get free PDUs for those too. Yeah, so that's a little bit about us. Okay, so I want to throw out a question to you guys. Every organization invariably has some really great as well as some not so great project managers. You know, the best project managers, as I see it, those are the folks that are trusted by their stakeholders. They have the respect of their teams. Somehow, by miracle, it seems a lot of times the best project managers are the ones that are managing more projects than their not so great peers. They're the ones that get assigned the toughest, most important projects because leadership really has confidence that they're going to get it done and get it done the right way the first time. Great project managers are always in high demand. Organizations always need more great project managers on our team because ultimately that's how organizations execute against their strategy. And yet when I ask a lot of project managers, most of them tell me that they're above average. And so I think sometimes as an industry we're not so self-aware. So I want to pose this question to you guys, but ask it in a little bit different way. for those of you that have worked around other project managers, you may have seen some that are truly great and some that are not so great. And so I want you guys to put into the chat window, for those project managers that you think are truly the great ones, what have you seen them do differently? What does that look like? What are the characteristics that they exhibit that maybe some of the not so great ones are? So I want you guys to think about that for the next couple of maybe 10, 15, 20 seconds here. And I want you guys to maybe put 1 or 2 thoughts into the chat window. What does that look like? What does a great project manager look like? Great, we have some good answers here. I have a few here that I'll read out to folks. Very strong leadership, absolutely. Daily open communication. Yeah, for those of you that have taken your PMP exam, you know that the majority of what we do as project managers is really communication. So that's super important. Vision, leader, keeping people accountable, absolutely. But at the same time, being approachable, having a positive attitude, absolutely. Man, stuff goes wrong all the time on projects, so you've kind of got to be that cheerleader with a positive attitude, collaborative, able to plan ahead, continual follow-up, enthusiasm, engaging others openly. Oh, fantastic. Organized, flexible, encouraging, someone that has your back, absolutely. Good communicator. They listen and have varied networks to bring in SMEs on anything. Fantastic. Great communicator, great communicator. Communication, frequent and clear. I'm seeing a trend here. Great communicator, again, engaging, good communication skills, good follow-up. I'm not going to read all of these, but I'll pick out a few that don't say good communicator because I'm getting a ton of those. Have the ability to handle time well and be well organized. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Good at delegating. Values others' opinions. Gets projects done on schedule, within cost, and meets the success criteria of the project. True listening skills. Anticipate what stakeholders want. Oh, fantastic. They are a mentor and a tormentor. Yes, at times they are. Oh, fantastic. This is such a great list, and I'll provide this list out to everyone at the end. I've come up with 5 that I see in industry, and we'll go ahead and walk through those now. So far and away, what I see as the differentiating characteristic, and this comes from just working with a lot of different project teams, working with PMO leadership. When I pose the question to them as to what makes your folks that are great, what makes them really, really good, and a lot of times I hear words synonymous with their drivers. And what I mean by that is I don't mean they're driven in their career or they have type A personality, but rather they have a very simple focus on driving the project forward. You know, that's the whole reason a sponsor hands a project over to a project manager is so that they don't have to worry about it. And so what a great project manager, you won't ever hear them say is, well, I've sent them a few emails and they never got back to me. You know, a great project manager chases people down. They make sure things get done. They take accountability in a lot of times places where people do not take accountability. You know, they turn around and make sure that other people are also held accountable. I heard a few of those kinds of comments when I asked you guys, what does a great project manager do? Yeah, they hold themselves accountable. They hold other people accountable. Even though they may not be the one responsible for doing the work, the best project managers never forget that they're the ones accountable for making sure the work gets done on time, within budget, all that kind of stuff, and that it's done well, because their name ultimately is on this project. You never see a great project manager waiting to the last minute. They don't give excuses as to why something is late. They get ahead of it. They drive it to completion. Our job as project managers really is to preempt the stuff that no one else can see, look out into the future, steer this big ship a lot of times, and make sure that everything possible is done to make sure that this project is successful. I also see the best project managers are the ones that are impatient. They're impatient with themselves. They're impatient with others. They're impatient with bad news. They report bad news quickly. They don't let it fester. I think those things are super, super important. So they move the project forward. They think far ahead out into the future. And ultimately, they solve problems. So, things never go as planned. We know planning is important, but things never go as planned, and great project managers know this. But when things go wrong, when they do, they keep a level head. They figure out what the root of the problem is. They seem like they're natural problem solvers because they don't get emotional and they don't blame others. They attack the problem rather than attacking people. Their whole goal is, how do we get this issue resolved? So they ask good questions. They immediately get folks together. They facilitate open and honest communication, and they drive to resolution quickly. In the day-to-day, they pull roadblocks out of their team's way and then get out of their way and let them get the job done. So, what I see as driver project managers, those folks are really the ones with the most successful projects at the end of the day. So, to that end, how do you strengthen your driver skills? So here's some things that I think are really helpful. And if you're not already practicing them, these are things you should start putting into your toolbox, start incorporating into your daily life. Number one, always have the mentality of driving to decisions. When I ask leadership, how do the great project managers deal with problems? They deal with them very, very differently. It's not just, oh, here's the problem. They think about, okay, what are all the solutions? Let's try to come up with as many solutions as we can immediately, not wait for it, not wait for somebody to ask them, well, what's the solution? They're driving that, and they're saying, okay, what are all the things that we're going to do? This seems like a very simple thing, but the best project managers do this consistently. Every time there's decisions, there's action items, they immediately assign ownership, they immediately assign due dates. So they say, okay, here's what we're going to do. So-and-so is going to do X, and they're going to have this done by X. They communicate out commitments. They communicate out ownership and due dates. It makes it infinitely easier to hold people accountable if you've got activities, action items assigned to owners and due dates. I think being a driver also, it's easier to be a driver of others if you start with yourself. So what I always try to do is start tasks for myself as soon as possible. Don't wait until next week's meeting. Start planning it now. Don't wait until Friday when a status report is due. Start it now. Be thinking about what are those things that we can get a jump on, so at the end we're not rushing all the time. The second thing is the best project managers are also the most organized. And I actually should say number two is organized. I find that they maintain the best data on their projects. They have the most complete notes. They seem to know more than anybody else on their project, and they can very quickly pull up information that's needed about their project. Their schedules are also up to date, and they can tell you in real time what the status of their project is at any point in the project. They're never rushing around last minute to pull data together, and it seems like it just magically happens, but the mystery behind it is because they're very well organized. If you ever have to take over a project from another project manager, you hope and pray that you're getting it from somebody that's organized, because all the information is there. It's very easy for you to pick up and take over. When the information on your project is documented and organized, you're invariably going to spend less time chasing people down, chasing information down when you need it. It's something, again, very simple, that if you take the time to get yourself organized, it's going to get you very, very huge dividends on your project later on. So what this means is just taking a little bit of extra time, more than your average project manager, to make sure that, for example, you consistently use a few basic templates. There's lots and lots of Word and Excel templates out there that work perfectly well. You take the time to document key conversations. You make sure that communication is clear, that when you type up, for example, meeting minutes, that it's written in complete sentences so that people understand what you're getting at. That you put your documentation in a logical format structure or folder structure so that you have easy retrieval later on. So what an organized person looks like is they document everything, they maintain excellent data, and their schedules, everything is up to date and current. You don't wait until the end of the project to go back and document everything. You're consistently doing it throughout. It's interesting. I'm surprised often by how many project managers don't just use some very, very simple tools. And there's so many fantastic resources out there. So what I always recommend is get some really good project templates that you like. Basic things like meeting agenda template, meeting minutes template, risk register, project plan, lessons learned template. I mean, there's fantastic templates out there that you can pick up and immediately start using that are in, just basic Word or Excel format. Put everything in writing. What I found is that you've got to document key decisions, key action items. Don't rely on your memory. Don't rely on a handshake. If you have conversations with folks and key things come up, put that down in an email and say, hey, this is what I recall that we talked about. Here are the action items. Here's who's going to do that. Here's the date that that's going to be done. Because invariably people forget what's been agreed to. And this is, one of those things that you've got to protect yourself. You've got to protect this project, and you've got to make sure that the important stuff is in writing. And then the third thing I would say is really work on honing your scheduling skills. The best project managers maintain really strong schedules. And in order to do that, you've got to get some good understanding of how the tool works to use it effectively. So, for example, if you're using Microsoft Project, formal Microsoft Project training is well worth the time and money. There's a book that I love called Dynamic Scheduling with Microsoft Project, and I'm happy to send that information to you guys at the end of this, that really teaches the philosophy behind creating a great and most importantly, a low maintenance project schedule. There's fantastic tools out there. Microsoft Project is one of them, but it's important not to just start using it, but to really get some good understanding and some good training on how to use the tool. All right, number 3, the best project managers are consistent. Think of yourself as the postman. When nobody else around is being consistent, you have to be the one that's consistent. So what that means is, at the beginning of your project, set very clear expectations around, hey, this is how I run a project. This is what you can expect from me. Come hell or high water, this is what you're going to get from me. And then make sure that you deliver against that. So for example, every week have very good, robust weekly status reports. If you say that you're going to send out communication, make sure that you send it out. The other things that this looks like is the best project managers send out a good meeting agenda a few days prior to a team meeting, so everybody knows what's expected of them. Nobody's time is wasted. They come prepared with answers to questions to those team meetings. And what you'll find is if you are consistent as a project manager, your team is going to be more consistent too. They'll work harder because they realize, hey, if I don't come prepared to this next project meeting, if I don't have my work done that I said I was committing myself to do, I know I'm going to be called on the carpet, because I know that's how that they are. They work to a higher standard, and they expect the best from their team members as well. You can depend on a consistent project manager because they excel at the basics. So they set expectations up front. They plan out and think through their messaging. They have different messages for different folks. They make sure that everyone's kept in the loop, that everyone has the information that they need to do their job well. and they excel at the basics. You know, the stuff that seems mundane, like, I'm not going to send out meeting minutes. It's going to take too much time. We didn't just, maybe there wasn't anything that was important for certain folks. The basics at the end of the day are what matter. And what I find is that when projects run into trouble, even my own projects, when they run into trouble, it's because I have gotten away from the basics. You know, I didn't think about risks. I wasn't good about my documentation. So make sure that you're very good at the basics, and you don't ever drop the ball on those. All right, some new activities, if you're not already doing them, to make sure that you're practicing. Up front, ask folks, what kinds of decisions are you trying to make on this project? What kind of information is most important to you? A lot of times we assume we know what folks want, and we don't take that extra step to ask them. You know, how often do you need this information? What's too much? What's too little? If you understand or try to get to the root of the decisions that folks are making, that's going to change the information that you give to them. The other thing that is a really simple thing, and yet I find that project managers don't consistently do, is come up with a communication plan and really sit down and think through it with every project. Even if you've done it a million times before, think through, okay, who needs what information? Who are my stakeholders? How often do I need to get this to them? You know, not only create that communication plan, refer to it, keep it updated, stick to it. You know, people are going to see if you're consistent or not, and they're going to follow your lead. And if all else fails, set calendar reminders. You know, if status reports are due on Friday, set a reminder for yourself on Wednesday to start thinking about it, start filling that out. It may remind you to do other things you hadn't thought about, and so you're not rushing for the last minute. Again, this goes back to being organized. I have a weekly status report that I really like that keeps my leadership informed. It has basic things like, hey, this is what we accomplished this week. In full sentences, it says who accomplished it, what the key things were, what we've got coming up the next week, any salient points and things that I know I need to keep them up to date about, any risk, challenges, any other things that they deem to be important. And in just about every project, there's little tweaks that I make to it to make sure that folks get exactly what it is that they need. Okay, the fourth thing that is a key characteristic of the best project managers is I see those best folks as what I call challengers. The best project managers, they question assumptions, they challenge those around them to do great work and to do better, be better. They don't just say yes to deadlines or other directives. They question it, and they question authority where needed. Respectfully question authority. They ask great questions. They think about ways to draw the information out that they need. They are seemingly naturally curious, and they ask questions like, have you thought about this? They really seek to understand and push people to be better. So, I ask folks, even if I think I'm an expert in an area, I always try to dig deeper and ask questions like, okay, help me understand this, describe for me. I think one of the most important or most powerful questions that a project manager has at their disposal is the very simple question, why? When people ask something of your team or they give you a due date for a project or an activity, ask them why. I've seen this happen multiple times where a sponsor will give a deadline and the project manager won't ever question it. And sometimes that deadline is firm and sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's solid reasoning behind it and sometimes there's not. And you need to know that. Otherwise, you're stuck with making a false assumption and you could really, do some harm to yourself and to the project. So make sure that you're constantly asking the question, why? You're digging deeper. On the flip side, one of the best things you can do for your team is to always make sure that you communicate out the why behind something. So whether it be a decision, a deadline, the importance of the project, the mission of the project, don't make the assumption that your team understands the why. Oftentimes they don't. We all want to work on stuff that's important, projects that have meaning. And I find that a lot of times folks become more enthused about a project when you make sure that they understand that meaning, when you give them importance as to what they're doing and why they're doing it. So don't underestimate that small question, why. My second favorite question to introduce into your regular vocabulary is the phrase, how so? You know, when somebody tells you something vague, they give you an answer, I always have tried to get into the habit of following up with how so? Because what happens is they're going to invariably explain more about the situation. You'll more easily get to the root of an issue, and it's in a very non-confrontational way. And I challenge you to just practice using that phrase, how so? You'll get tons more information than you otherwise would, and folks won't even realize that you're doing it. So challengers, they really test assumptions. They ask good probing questions and open-ended questions. They ask questions that start with the word what or the word how. You know, how is that happening? Why is that happening? Describe that for me. So those are things that I would highly recommend incorporating into your everyday. Why? How so? Questions like, you know, help me understand, explain for me, to get to the bottom of it. Do not assume you know the answer to something. And then communicate out the why for folks. Give them meaning, give them reason for you know, going above and beyond. Okay, and then our last thing, last but not least, the very best project managers are always learning, always getting better at their craft. This little picture here, a lot of times is how I hear project managers talk about learning. Why do I have to learn more stuff? Why do I have to get PMP certified? I'm busy managing my projects. But what I find is the best project managers are the ones that have this idea that they are constant learners. They're always reading blog articles. They're always reading books. They're talking with other project managers. They're comparing best practices. You know, they actually learn from their mistakes and make new and interesting mistakes all the time. They're finding ways to inspire and communicate with others, incorporate new techniques into what they do that are going to make their job easier, their project more successful. They're actually, you know, thirsty for knowledge, and they find it. There's so much great information out there. You know, they're the ones that realize that they can only get better. A lot of times what I find, can you guys still hear me? Hopefully. What I find is that they're also the most humble project managers in an organization, because they really see themselves as a sponge. They really see themselves as continuing to learn and grow and be better. I also find that they're the ones that share their knowledge the most. They're the ones that admit their mistakes the most, and they're the ones that folks are most loyal to, because they realize that they're imperfect just like everybody else. So the best project managers, they hone their craft, they learn their lessons, they genuinely learn their lessons and change behavior. They grab knowledge from other people, they share knowledge with others. You know, it's best to learn from others rather than make the same dumb mistakes yourself. So anytime you can do that, you're going to be a step ahead of everyone else. You know, make sure that you take, those are the folks that take feedback to heart and do things differently. All right, so some things that I recommend to become stronger in a learner characteristic is to seek out great project managers, learn from them. So all of you that thought about these great project managers in your head and you know, were really quick to tell me all the great things about some of these project managers, make sure that you ask them questions. You know, pull their learning and their knowledge out of them. Ask them things like, what tools do they use? What templates do they use? What books have they read? What classes have they found to be really helpful? What are the things that they've found to be helpful, the lessons that they've learned? I'm really surprised a lot of times when I go into organizations and I talk to you know, PMOs and project teams and things like that. is that project managers a lot of times are social with one another, but they don't pull knowledge from one another. And a lot of times other project managers are dealing with the same stuff you are. So find out from them, pull as much knowledge as you can from them, because there's a ton of great stuff there. If you've never had formal project management training, get some, period. When you stop learning new things about project management, you're going to fall behind. When other people have project management certifications and you don't, they're going to be the ones that jump ahead, that remain competitive. So if you don't have your PMP certification and you want to stay in this career, I highly recommend you get that. If you have the PMP certification, we all know that you have to get PDUs to maintain that certification. Training is a great way to keep your skills sharp. Think about if you're working in IT, ITIL is a great certification to have. If you're working in software development, becoming a certified Scrum Master is a great certification to have. Think about those things that are going to not only make you more competitive, but really make you a better project manager. Because I found that, man, no matter what class I take, there's something good I can pull out of it and start using in my day-to-day. We also do a lot of coaching, and I find that coaching is a great way to, to get your team moving in the right direction, to get a fresh set of eyes on things, and really point out some things that maybe you guys haven't thought about or you've gotten away from doing. So highly recommend coaching. Read stuff. There's tons and tons of great material online. There's fantastic books on project management. I just read one recently called The Scrappy Project Management that is fantastic, that just talks about project management in the real world and things to be thinking about, and kind of goes along the same lines of what we're talking about today, how to become that great project manager rather. Speak. You learn a ton by teaching. And I know that PMI is always looking for speakers, for volunteers, for people to write. So share your knowledge. You get better by sharing your knowledge as well. Another great idea, join Toastmasters. I know the local chapter has a Toastmasters chapter. It will make you stronger at your verbal skills, at your written skills, and just really round out, especially if you've got some weakness in those areas. Really, really fantastic group to join. So these are the 5 traits. I just wanted to go back over them. The best project managers are drivers. They're organized. They are consistent. They challenge others, including themselves, and they are good learners. The best project managers, a lot of you have said this too, they're leaders. They're not glorified admins. When I hear glorified admin, I know project managers are getting off track. Project managers are project leaders at the end of the day. They add value to an organization. They take a project and they make it great. It's something that you have to work at, though. It doesn't come naturally to a lot of folks. But the good news is that all these things are learned skills. If you keep at it, you're certainly going to get better. And at the end of the day, really, the best project managers are the ones that try. They try to improve themselves. They try to improve their teams. They challenge the status quo. And they ultimately make a decision that no matter what, they're going to be great. So I'm going to ask you guys one more question here, and I want you guys to think about this for a few seconds here, and I want you to put this in the chat window. From what we've talked about today, what's one thing that you're going to commit to do in the next 30 days? So I'm going to hold you guys accountable as well. I want to know what you're going to commit to, and we've got a deadline of the next 30 days. All right, I've got one project manager saying they're going to develop a communication plan within the next 30 days. Fantastic. Got someone else saying they're going to challenge the status quo. Someone else saying, I'm going to say, how so? Fantastic. Be a driver. Love it. Better communication plans. Assign responsibilities and deadlines. Fantastic. Learn more about Agile. Great, great framework to learn more about. I'm going to ask, how so? I'm going to get additional project management training. I'm going to polish my communication skills. Brush up on project scheduling tools. Be more of a challenger. Ask more questions, more whys and how so's. Love it. I'm going to ask my stakeholders what they need versus assuming I know what they need. I'm going to commit to conduct a session in my organization that will help develop project managers and help them become better project managers. I'm going to set calendar reminders. I'm going to practice on my organizational skills by finding new templates I like. I'm going to ask why more often. Go to the local PMI meeting. If you guys have not been to a PMI meeting, they are excellent. You get PDUs and you also pick up some new knowledge, and you get to network with other folks that you can pull all of their knowledge out of their brain as well. I'm going to drive better. It's easy to get overloaded and send emails and hope. Yeah, you've got to get out from behind your computer. Make sure that you're driving folks and driving the activities and projects to completion. Finding new project managers, asking why. Be more meticulous in my communication. Oh, I love this one. Seek out an experienced or great project manager at my organization and have lunch with them. That's fantastic. Challenge my remote resources more. Ask them more questions. Show my CIO the deck from this meeting. Yay! So that he knows the processes I've been trying to implement are critical. Learn from my project management peers. Recommend this class to other project managers. So I've gotten a couple questions as to whether or not we're going to post this presentation. We are recording this presentation, and I will make sure that within the week we get it up onto YouTube. I'm also posting a blog article. You'll see it if you're connected to me on LinkedIn, as well as we're going to put it up on our website. And I've got a few more slides here. I'll show you guys exactly where that's at. Create a project management toolkit for my team with templates. Love it. Love it. Love it. Dust off my templates and update them. Fantastic. This is a great list. So this will be a short and shameless plug, but there are a lot of things that, I've been where you guys have been. I've done this for many, many years, and a lot of the stuff that we offer as products and services really help address some of the pain that I've had in my own experience and just working with other project teams as well. If you're looking for training, we do quite a bit of training. We have 4-day PMP prep courses. We also teach something called Prince 2. Not as many people are familiar, but it's a project management methodology that came out of the UK. What I find a lot of times is when you go into a PMO and you ask different project managers to show you what they're doing on their projects, you get all different variation of what folks are doing. So I think it's really important for organizations to come up with a methodology of here's how we run projects, here are the templates that we use, here's some consistency. And Prince 2 is just a very simple methodology that organizations can very quickly and easily adopt. So we do have training in Prince 2. We do a lot of different assessments too. So if folks want to come up with, let's say, a career plan, or do this in tandem with like annual reviews and an improvement, we do project management skills assessments, so we can show, we give each project manager their own improvement plan as to where they're strong, where they're weak, where their customers and peers say they're strong and weak, and their project teams say they're strong and weak, and really can help with development of individuals. We do project health assessments to see the health of different projects. And we also do these things called project management simulations. They're one-day interactive learning sessions that teach project management concepts, especially to folks outside of the project team, so sponsors and customers, as well as project teams, really understand why you're doing a lot of this stuff. So my attendee that said that they were going to share this with their CIO to show the importance of, hey, this is why we have processes for projects. The simulation does a really, really great job of helping people understand it, and they do it all in kind of a game format, and they learn by doing. It's really, really effective. I don't know that I'm doing a great job of explaining it, but everyone that does a simulation just loves it, and we've done it as like team building. We've done it, in tandem with like a big tool rollout or a big process improvement initiative. So those work really, really well, and we also do a bit of coaching as well for teams. If you guys have questions, again, on any of that stuff, feel free to reach out to me. Also, if you go to our site, beyond20.com/training, you can see all this stuff as well. If you guys have any questions, here's my contact information. This is the number to our office. Later today, I'll also be posting a blog article that talks through all the stuff we talked about today called 5 Traits of a Great Project Manager. So if you go to beyond20.com/blog, not yet, but later today, I promise you it will be up there. You can also follow me or Beyond20 on Twitter. We're also on LinkedIn as well as YouTube. So lots and lots of different ways to stay connected, and we also have a lot of good content. All right, if there's no more questions, actually I'll leave it open for questions. If you guys want to take a minute or two to write me any additional questions, I'm happy to respond to that. I do have a good question here. How do you balance being a driver with being considered pushy or aggressive? This is a great question because it really is a balance. I think what you've got to do is, if you want to improve your driver skills, you've got to drive the project and focus what you're doing on activities in the project. If you focus on people, they're going to take offense. But what I try to do is I always try to focus on the data and say, or, when something goes wrong, you focus on the problem, not the people. So what I always say is, hey, you committed to this, and we have the date here that it needs to be done. What's going on? I always try to also not so much accuse, but ask people questions. That's the best way I think you can drive the right behaviors, by asking good questions. Why hasn't this been done? What are the roadblocks that I can remove for you to get this so that it is done? What's going on? I think that's probably the best way I can describe of how you do it without being pushy or aggressive. I think most people go the other way, and they want to have everyone be their friend and be really nice, but at the same time, you all have a job to do, and you've got to stay focused on that. So drive the resolution, stick to focusing on the data and focusing on the problem at hand. And honestly, I wouldn't worry about being thought of as too pushy or too aggressive, because I've met folks that are pushy and aggressive, and I'd rather the balance be on that end than too nice and too soft and don't hold their people accountable. I don't have respect for project managers that hit the other side of the balance, that at the end of the day, you're there to make this project successful. And if you don't push things forward, if you aren't aggressive, then those things don't get done. So I have a lot of questions around templates. I'm happy to email you guys some templates. I have some very simple ones for status report and risk register and a lot of things like that. I'm happy to share that as well. Oh, so we have another good question. How do you balance being the project manager and also a resource on the team? That's interesting. I've been both. I've been on projects, the project manager, and also a resource doing the work. In some cases, you'll be the one accountable, but not necessarily responsible for doing the work. I think how you balance it is you've got to leave yourself time to be the project manager. You've got to leave yourself time, even if it means carving time out of your nights or weekends or whatever that may be, to be the project manager. You can't just be the doer of the work, because the role of project manager is so vital. You've got to step back from the day-to-day and you've got to look at the big picture. So, when you're the project manager and you're also a resource on the team, you've got dual roles. You've got to be down in the weeds and making sure the work gets done, but you've also got to be up in the high level and making sure that the project overall is successful. So I think you just have to carve out the time. It's like the analogy I like to use, it's like going to the gym. You always make excuses for why you're not going to go and how you don't have time. But if you don't go to the gym, if you don't exercise, then you're never going to get the benefits that you hope for. So even if you have to put time on your calendar, hey, from Monday from 9 to noon, I'm not doing anything else except for, making sure that my documentation's up to date, that I'm reaching out to other team members, that I'm making sure that the activities of a project manager get done. Ooh, another great question. How do you keep motivating team members to attend meetings when the project duration is a year or so? This is common, especially with a project that's really long, because what happens is at the beginning of a project, everyone's super excited, super motivated. They can't wait to get going. Everyone's in the best mood, and then about 3 months, 6 months in, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer, folks lose enthusiasm. I think what you've got to do is a couple of fold. Number one, if you break your project into small victories and smaller wins, you'll keep people motivated. This is a concept that we talk about in Certified Scrum Master. Scrum is all about, or Agile rather, is all about breaking projects up into small chunks. And if you do that, it keeps people engaged, it keeps them motivated. I think the other thing that helps motivating team members is to, number one, make your meetings interesting, make them effective. If you just go around and say, what's your status, what's your status, what's your status, every single week, people are going to be bored. They're not going to know that it's important for them to be there. I always try to experiment in meetings and play games, as silly as that sounds. Do problem solving games, though, not like Monopoly. We're not going to play Monopoly. But no, problem solving games that force people to think critically. When you come prepared with good questions for folks, when you talk about issues that are important, people will come to your meetings. But I would also say make those meetings an effective use of people's time. Start them on time, stick to the agenda, don't run late. And then the very last thing, turns out I have a lot of ideas on this one, is explain to people why. Always, always, always be, constantly think about explaining the why of the project, why the next section of the project is important, why they need to be involved. Give folks the why. So for PDUs, I know that the chapter is automatically going to give everyone a PDU. I believe the Phoenix chapter can do that automatically for you guys. So you won't have to worry about PDUs for this one. But I will send a follow-up email to everyone with information, and that will also give you information around how to submit your PDUs, because we have a PMI registered educational provider number. So if you don't see that PDU showing up for yourself here in the next week or so, you can use that information as well to claim your PDUs. So don't worry, you're covered. All right, so it looks like those are all the questions for today's session. If you think of any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Also, make sure to go to our blog. We do have lots of blog articles there, and lots more coming. So stay tuned. Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of the week and a fabulous weekend.